holiday printing. My name is Birgit Koopsen. I'm a brand ambassador for Jelly Arts and I'm in the Netherlands. And today we're going to do some snowy prints for the holidays. And I think the best thing to do is just turn the camera around and I can show you what we are going to make today. So let's turn the camera to my hands. There we go. So today we're going to make some cards and some table placement cards and some tags to put on decorate your gifts for Christmas. And we're going to use masks for to create the stars and the ornaments. So I'm using today my 5x7-inch Jelly Arts gel printing plate. So that's this one, 5x7-inch. But of course, you can also, if you have a bigger one, you can use the bigger one and maybe even print 2 cards at the same time. I'm going to use the paper I'm going to use is all from the Michaels Recollection collection. So I'm going to use white cardstock paper that is to print the backgrounds that are going to be on the card. So this is the white cardstock paper. And then I have some folded cards. They are also from Recollections and they come in a pack with envelopes. So you have this pack 5x6.5-inch are 50 sets. So you can make a bunch of cards. Then I have from Recollections tags, and these are 3x4-inch, and they have this fun shape, and I use them to create the table cards. So I just folded them and created these fun little table cards. And then we have some white tags, 20 pieces. I'm not sure. Oh, here it is, 2.5-inch by 5.12-inch. So this is the paper we're using. And we're going to use acrylic paint. I'm using today acrylic paint from Amsterdam and from Liquitex. And the only reason that I chose one or the other is the colors, but they are very similar. The consistency is very similar. The way they react on the gel plate is very similar. So it doesn't really matter which of these two you use for your printing. It's just a matter of a preference for colors. And I'm also using some Durlar sheets, and I'm using the Durlar sheets to create the masks. And you could definitely also create the masks by just using plain paper. But what I really like about the Durlar is that it doesn't tear and it doesn't take up any moisture. So they stay very well for a long time. You can use them like over and over again. And what also is a benefit is that it is translucent. So if you are struggling drawing the shapes you want to use, for instance, if you want to use stars or maybe you want to use bells or something like that, you could actually just print out any shape you want to use, also like a Christmas tree, for instance. You can put the Durlar on top and trace it and then cut it out, and then you can use them over and over and over again without them tearing. So if you do it with paper, you have to be a little bit careful when you lift them up from the plate because they might tear. But I have to say, if you have used them a couple of times and a layer of acrylic paint is building up, then they get stronger, so they get sturdier too. So if you don't have this, then just go ahead and create your masks from just maybe a little bit thicker copier paper or something like that. I'm also going to use a jelly roll pen, a gold colored pen to add details. and the Posca, white Posca marker to draw the snow and to add the splattering. And I have repositionable Easy Dots roller from Scrapbook Adhesives, and I'm using this to apply the masks to the background to make sure they stay in place if I want to do several layers of printing on top of each other. So that's the basic, the things that I'm going to use today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with creating some backgrounds, because these are made up in 2 or 3 layers. So first I'm going to make a layer, a background layer, which will be the color that you see here in the stars and also here in the ornaments. So this is the color that you see in here is basically the first print before you add the darker color on top. And so the first print usually consists of 2 prints in 2 layers. And then we're going to use the masks and create what is going to be in the end the background. So the dark blue or even black, if you like, background. So first I'm going to create some of these backgrounds, and I'm just going to do a couple of tags and also some paper for the cards, and then we're just going to see how many we can do today. So let me see, do there fit 2 on one? No, there's not going to fit 2 on one plate. So I'm just going to do one by one. Also, I have here some found material to create texture. So as you can see in this card, for instance, there is some texture in here. So there's some blue, purple lines on top of here, the yellow, and here on top of the pink. And that's the texture that I created in the 2-layered print. And what I used here is thread. But you can also use, for instance, bubble wrap, or here I have some eyelash thread, but also here I have just a simple piece of tissue paper that I crumpled, and then you can create a fun texture in your background. And that's actually what I'm going to do in my first print. So I like to start with light and bright colors because of the dark layer that's going to be on top in the end. And I like to have a really nice contrast between the colors. So I'm going to start with colors like light pink. And let me see, I have an orange here and a yellow. And maybe something like turquoise green would also work for the first layer. I think I have another yellow here. There's a little bit more in here. So let's just start with making the first layers. So I'm just adding a little bit of paint to my plate, and I'm going to roll it out, and I'm using my speedball brayer, and I'm just randomly going to mix these colors, and I don't have to fill my entire plate completely because I'm going to do the tag, and it is only a small, what I can actually do is half a tag, and then there will be some left in the second print probably that I can then fill the open area here with. So I always have some spare copier paper on the side to roll off the paint from my brayer, but also to put on top of my paper if the paper is smaller than the plate. It helps me to keep my hands clean. So I'm just going to lift it up, and then this is my first layer, and here almost full, but there's a little bit here that I will fill later. I'm also going to do 2 of these, and maybe then I already have some paint left for the side of the other tag. Okay, and I'm going to do a little bit of orange and maybe a brighter pink. Let me see. This is, I can't read it anymore. It's totally gone, but I think it's a magenta. And this is a permanent red purple. I'm just going to mix them. And roll them out. Making a nice thin layer so my paper is able to pick up all of the paint, not leaving a lot of paint behind. So I'm just placing these down, and I think this will fit here. Okay. And there we go. Now this one is filled too. And probably I might not even see anything of the orange because it's on the side, but you never know. Okay, so these are my tags. And then I'm also going to do a couple of cards. And I'm just going to clean my plate, not because I don't want that paint to show up in my print, but as you can see, you still see the outline of the tags, and it's kind of like what you see on this print, you will also then see that on the card. So that's why I'm going to take this off. But in general, if there's any paint left on your plate, you can just leave it on. It will show up in your next print, but that's going to make your print more interesting and add some texture and an extra pop of color in your print if you're using different colors. So now let's take some cards, and again, light colors. And a little bit. No, I'm going to use some yellow in this one. And if there is too much paint on my plate, then I just roll off a little bit of that paint on my scrap paper to get that nice and even layer of paint that I want to have. And as I always say, and if you are watching not for the first time, then you already know this is not wasted. So I will be using these pages when there is more paint on them as background paper or collage paper, or to stamp on or die cut from. So my cleanup paper is also being used in a lot of projects. So if you have a little bit too much paint on your plate, don't feel bad for rolling it off on the scrap paper, because it will be used, and leaving it on the plate is not going to give you better prints. So it's better to just take some off to get a nicer, even, smooth surface of paint. So this is the first card, and then I'm going to do one with some magenta. And then I'm going to add some color on top to create texture. Maybe again also a little bit of yellow. And as you can see, my cleaner paper is really getting pretty. So I'm sure you can imagine using this as a background, for instance, to print a new layer on top, and then you already have your base layer. Okay. And another card ready for the second layer. Now, let me see. I think I will use the turquoise green. And maybe maybe I have some, what is this? Brilliant yellow green. That's also a nice color, so let's use that. I'm going to make sure that my brayer is clean so it doesn't mix the previous color with the new colors. Okay, I think that will do. So let's use the, let me see, I'm going to use the tissue paper to create some texture. So I'm just going to crumple it and then push it down into the wet paint. So I'm picking up some of that paint, creating some open areas, and I'm also going to use some of that, let's do the bubble wrap. So I'm also going to create texture with the bubble wrap. And then I'm just going to place this card on top. And then I hopefully have a nice background for an ornament card. And I think it's beautiful. Oh, there's something here. I'm not sure if it's completely sharp, but I think you can see how it looks. So I'm going to use different colors on this one. So how about a violet?
Birgit, we have a question from Kathy. She said, everything you're doing looks beautiful. She wanted to know, how often do you like to clean your brayer and how do you like to clean it?
Okay, so my brayer, I usually clean it on my roll-off paper. So here my cleanup paper. that's how I clean it during a gel printing session. And usually there's only this little paint left on the brayer that I can do several sessions before I think that too much paint has piled up on it. And so if I think that there's too much paint on there and I want to clean it, I just take it apart. So I can take this part out. And as you can see, I'd never clean this. I kind of like all the paint splatters that are on there. So I just put this aside. And this one, I just toss in a bucket with water. And you can add something like a Murphy's oil soap and leave it in overnight. And then the next day you rinse it and all of the paint will come off and your brayer will look as new. But I don't do that very often. I do that, I don't know, maybe only once a month or something. I just don't need to do it more often because between every layer of paint, I clean off my brayer on my paper. And I don't really do that because I want to keep my brayer clean. I do it because I don't want any wet paint on the brayer to mix with the new colors. So that's basically why I do it. But the extra benefit is that you don't have to clean your brayer after every gel printing session. So I'm going to create another texture on this one. And I'm going to use the eyelash thread for this one. And now I can use it two ways. So what I can do is I can use the eyelash thread kind of like a mask and put my paper straight on top of the eyelash thread and get the texture that way. And then when I remove the eyelash thread, there will be paint left underneath that I can also use. So I'm first going to create a texture on the card using the paint that's around the eyelash thread basically. And I'm making sure that I really rub well to go into those open areas and actually make my paper touch the plate, because obviously the thread being in between is keeping the paper up from the plate. But if you push it really well, then this is what happens. So this is a beautiful texture. And then I can try and pick up the leftover paint that was underneath the thread. I don't know how much is coming up, but oh, look at that. There's a little bit more here that I am going to pick up. And some here. So these are the two different ways of creating texture with the thread. And although this is like a really bold texture and I do like it, but my favorite is always the more distressed, weathered look of the paint that's left underneath. I really like that. Okay, and now we need some texture on these two, and then we can start creating the ornaments on the cards and on the tags. So let me see, or maybe I'll just do one. I'm sure I can't do all of them anyway during this session, but that's okay because the technique on all of the items is exactly the same. So if you can do one, you can do all of them. Let me see the texture I'm going to do on this one, maybe. With the turquoise green. I can do both at the same, they fit both on one plate. So I'm just going to do both of them and then I can choose the one that I like best. Mm. Oh, that looks a bit dry. Let me see if I can spread it. It's not going to spread really well. Oh, well, I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of this color then. Oops, that's too much. Taking some off, because otherwise it's just going to be too dark to create a nice contrast with the background later, I think. What else can I use to create a nice texture? How about a pill strip? Just a pill blister. And I'm just pushing it down into the paint. And this way it's creating a bunch of dots, because the paint is of course only being picked up with the lower part of the blister and not where the open parts are. So that's why you get all the dots. This one and this one, and again push it down, rub well. So when I do cards like this, then I am okay if not all of the paint is being picked up from the plate, if some paint stays behind, and if the texture is not like perfect on my print. So I'm just going to pick them up as straight after rubbing. So I don't let the paint dry on the plate. I don't leave the paper on until the paint is dry. But so I used the right amount of paint, so everything is being picked up now. But if I am doing a print that I want to be absolutely sure that my paper is picking up all of the paint from the plate, and I won't get any open areas or any areas where the paint didn't pick up, I leave my paper on the plate until everything is completely dry. Because what happens is that everything will stick together. So the paper and the paint, even if you have several layers, they will all stick together. And the plate is made to release any product. So what will happen is when you pull up the paper, all of the layers will come off. No matter how many layers you have, no matter how many layers you let dry before you added the last layer of paint, everything will come off because everything sticks together. Basically, acrylic paint is like a glue, and it sticks to the paper. So that's a tip. If you want to make sure that all of the paint is coming off, then leave your paper on the plate until everything is dry. But when you do that, you have to make sure that everything is actually really dry, because if your paper is half, or your paint is half dried and half not dried, and your paper is moist, then you will tear your paper when you lift it up from the plate. So if you leave it on the plate to dry, make sure that it is actually completely dry before lifting it up. So these turned out a little bit darker than I hoped, but that's okay, because I have some really good cards, and I'm going to show you the technique now. And I still need my gel plate. So let's start with I think I'm going to start with this one. I think that's a nice one. So here I have some masks that I made from the Duralar. And as you can see, it's very sturdy, but still very bendable and flexible. But you can't tear it. It's very, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what it is exactly, but it doesn't tear and it doesn't take up any moist. So it's perfect to create masks. And here I have actually one that I just created from an acetate sheet, which also works very well. Even if you have like blister packaging, then usually there is some area in that packaging that you could cut out and create a shape from and then use it as a mask or as a stencil. And I think maybe I also have a paper one. I think this might actually be a paper one. So as you can see, many layers of paint have built up on this one. So this has become quite sturdy too, and then you can also use it several times. So I used a die cutting machine to create these. So you can use whatever die cutting machine you have, like a Sizzix or a Cuttlebug or any die cutting machine, and die cuts. And I did the same with the stars. But of course, you can also draw them by hand if you can do that, or if you like a little bit more hand draw feel to your card, then you can create some little bit less perfect stars or circles, which also can be really nice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the masks on my background exactly where I want them, and I'm going to apply them with the repositionable adhesive. So I can turn it over on my gel plate with a layer of paint, and I will know that they are exactly in the position where I want them. Of course, you can also randomly just place them on the plate and then put your card on it. But if you want more control over where your ornaments are going to be, then you can use the repositionable adhesive. So what you have to make sure before you use something like repositionable adhesive is that the paint of your background needs to be really dry, because if the paint isn't dry and you take off the mask, then the adhesive might pull up some of the paint from your background. But if your paint is completely dry, then that will not happen. It's not very strong, but it is strong enough to pull up wet paint. So be careful that your background is completely dry. I'm just going to take the risk now. Normally I would have left it maybe a little longer to dry, or I would have used my heat gun maybe, but I'm now just going to go ahead and do it. So I want this ornament, this one a little bit lower, and then I want this one to look as if it is behind this one. So I'm using a little bit smaller one here because it's further away. And I'm also, oh, I think it's empty. I hope I have another one here. I have another one here. I didn't see that coming. Anyway, I have another one. And I'm going to maybe I'll have to put this one a little bit higher anyway, and then this one over down here. like this, and you have to make sure that they don't fall off. And then you can apply the paint to your gel plate. And normally, usually when I make a card like this, for this layer, the dark layer that I'm going to print on top, I usually need 2 layers before it's completely covering the background, because normally, usually you might like it when the background or the previous layer is shining through a little bit of the next layer. But in this case, I really want this dark color to look as if it's behind the ornaments, and it should not show any of the texture that is in my background paper. So I want to make sure that it is really opaque. But even if you use opaque paint to print with, let me see where did I put my here, for instance, my black acrylic paint. So it says on my paint tube that this is an opaque color. I can tell because there's this little square and it's a filled square. It's completely black, which means that it is an opaque color. And I have here one that had you can't even see the lines anymore of the square, but it had an open square. So there was a square, but that was it was not black. So it is a translucent color. And then you also have these with a square that is half black, half white. And that means that it's a semi-translucent color. So I want to use this blue color to make the background look a bit like a night, a dark night, but not completely black. I don't know if you can see it in on the video, but this is not really a black background. There it has like a blue shine. So what I'm going to do, the reason that this is not going to be completely opaque in the first layer is because you use very thin layers when you do gel printing. So probably you will still see a little bit of the background shining through when I do the printing. So what I like to do is first a layer of black paint, and then I'm going to add a second layer where I'm going to mix the black with the blue color that I just showed and do a second print. And that's also when where the repositionable adhesive comes in handy, because then I can put the ornaments in exactly the same place, and might they fall off in the first print. So I'm just going to roll out some of that black paint. A nice and even thin layer. So you might think, why are you not just using a thicker layer of paint to make it more opaque? But the thing is, if you use a thick layer of paint, then your print is not going to be nice and smooth. There is going to be, you will get some kind of texture in the paint, because when you pull it up, you kind of pull strings in the paint and you create some kind of texture in the paint layer, and you don't get a really nice and smooth print. So there is no, that's not helping you. Adding more paint is not helping you. It's better to just print several layers on top of each other to get a nice coverage. So now I'm going to pick it up, and as you can see, my masks are staying behind on the plate, and you can also see that my background layer is not completely opaque. So that's why we're going to do that second layer. And in the second layer, I'm going to add in the blue. But your paper can only pick up paint from the plate when it's dry. If there is a wet layer of paint on your paper, then it will not really pick up the next layer because your paper can only hold so much wet paint. So what I need to do now is I have to dry this layer before I can add the second layer. So I'm just going to take my heat gun to the side because you don't want to use your heat gun near your gel plate. And I'm just going to real quick dry my background color so I can add a new layer. So you should not use your heat gun on the gel plate. Sometimes you want your paint to dry on the gel plate and you don't want to wait for hours and hours for your paint to dry. What you can do then is use a hair dryer on the cold setting. If you must dry your paint, that's what you can do, a hair dryer on cold setting, but never a heat gun and never on high temperature, because you might melt your gel plate, and that's of course not what you want. So I'm going to place these back on my background so that I can print the second layer on top and have it in the exact right position. And I'm just real quick going to remove the most of this paint, because again, otherwise I would see the outlines of the ornaments, of the circles in my next print, and that's not what I want. Really nice black fingers, but that's okay. So now I'm going to use that greenish blue. I can't even read the name of the color anymore, but it's a really nice blue color, and I'm adding a little bit of black, so it's going to be a little bit more opaque, as I still want those open areas to cover up. There we go. So I just put my roll of paper, my cleanup paper aside. Once there is a layer of paint on it and it is still very wet, then you will not be able to roll off more paint. But once the paint is dry, I will just put it back on my stack of paper, and more layers will be added on top of the first layers when I'm cleaning my brayer and creating very interesting textures and color combinations. So I don't really look at what I do on my cleanup paper. I just go and clean my brayer. And if at some point I'm like, oh, that looks pretty, I can use that for something, then I will put that sheet of paper aside for later use. So I hope it is completely covered now. If not, I could add still yet another layer, but I think this is covered enough, at least to show you the next steps. Otherwise, I don't have enough time to show you the next steps. So in an ideal world, this would have been covered even more, but you can add as many layers if you want, as you want. So if you're not happy with how well the coverage is, you can always add more layers. But I'm also going to do some splattering and add some little gold stars. So I don't think you will really it will be really distracting that it's not completely covered. And again, I'm going to dry my print because I want to work with markers on top of this. And markers only work well on dry paint, because if you go with the marker into wet paint and that paint then dries on the tip of your marker, then your marker will not work anymore. So it's better to just make sure that the surface you're working on with your markers is dry. So now I'm going to use my Posca paint marker. You can use any paint markers. You can use Liquitex paint markers, Molotov, Posca, whatever you have on hand. They have real acrylic paint in them. What you always have to do when you use acrylic paint markers is you have to shake them before you use them. Because if you don't, when you don't use them and you have them just laying in your drawer or in a box or something, then the pigments go to the bottom, and you need to mix the pigments with the fluid that's in here. So you always have to shake them, and then you have to test if the paint is flowing, and if not, then you can pump the marker to make the paint flow again. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to do another step first. First, I'm going to create these little, I have no idea how to call them in English. I think I don't even know how to call them in Dutch. So the thingies that are on the ornament to hang your thread through or something. I'm going to draw them first, and I'm going to use a gold colored gel roll pen, and any gel roll pen will work. And I'm just going to very loosely draw these at the top of my ornaments. This one is a little bit high, but the most important is that you see how it's done, even if this is not going to be the most pretty one. Okay, so this is the first step, and then you can kind of hang them like this. And this one is going behind here. Oops. Like this. Okay, and now I'm going to add the snow, and the snow is actually going to make the ornaments stand out and make them look more 3D. So as you can see, these are like really flat. It's like just flat circles on a background, and these look as if they are actually balls, ornaments, more 3D. And that's what you're going to create with the snow, because by drawing the snow as if it's on a 3D object, you will make it look like that. So I'm just going to add that on here, and also a little bit on here, as if it actually just fell, and then like this. And this way you can also make that look as if these balls are behind each other by making those lines here. So I really like these Posca markers because they, especially the white one, because it's so nice and opaque. Not all markers I've tried are equally opaque on a colored background, but the Posca markers are really nice opaque colors. That's why I like them. I also really like the tip of these Posca markers. So you have a variety of tips to choose from. But I really like this one because it's a nice and fine tip. You can even use it to write, which is really, really nice. So as you can see, this print that I made here is the same colors and textures on the entire card. So all three of the ornaments look the same. But of course, you can choose to try to create different colors throughout the card to make a more the ornaments look more differently. And but what you also can really well do for this technique, and I actually did it with this one, is use any prints that didn't turn out so nice. So if you think I'm pretty sure that if you are already gel printing, that you have a stash of prints that you're not like very excited about because they just didn't come out the way you hoped or you liked, or the colors are just not so nice, or they didn't mix really well, or the texture didn't come out really nice. Those prints are perfect for techniques like this, where you do this masking, because if the print doesn't look really nice in total, most of the times it does actually look really nice if you only see a small part of it. So if you have any prints left lying around, then you don't even have to make prints especially to create these cards. You can just take whatever prints you have in your stash and add masks on top to create prints, cards like this. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of that snow before I go to the next step. And as you can see, they are already are standing out more. Sorry. Okay, now what I can do is add some gold lines in the areas where I haven't done that. I did it with these cards. I haven't done it with these cards, but obviously you can do it on any card and go in the areas where there's no snow to make them stand out even a little bit more. This also makes them a little less perfect circles, which I kind of like. Okay. And then you can also use that pen to create little golden stars in the background. Add some sparkle everywhere. And you can use the gold also to create a little border. Or frame, I don't know how you would call this. Are there any questions right now? It's very quiet. I hope you are all still here.
Birgit, we got a ton of comments. In case you're not able to look, thanks for another great class. We had Kathy who just bought her first Posca pen after her first class with you, and she loves it.
No, that's nice to hear. That's nice. Okay, so this is most of the card. And what I really think finishes this card is adding the snowflakes. And to create the snowflakes, I'm using my Posca pen too, but I'm not going to draw all the little flakes. I'm just going to use my Posca pen to splatter. And I do it simply by hitting the marker with something heavy like a pair of scissors. And then the little splatters come out and they create a really nice snowy feel. And what I really like is if you would do this with a brush and with white paint, for instance. I've done that before. I knew that you could do it this way. Sometimes you have like big splatters, or you get like these long splatters instead of the nice tiny dots. So I really only do splattering with Posca markers, basically. Okay, next step is very simple, is gluing down this onto your folded card. And I can't do it right now because all the splattering is still wet, but you can use any adhesive like a tape runner or a paint, how is it called? A glue stick, or even a fluid adhesive, whatever you have on hand. You can put it here, and then you can use it as a card to send to someone, and you can add a sentiment, for instance, here, or write something inside, or you can put menu here and make a couple of them and put them on your Christmas table, and then put the menu inside. And the same technique was used for the little placement cards. So after I did the printing, I folded them and then I decorated them, and I only did the front of these, but obviously you can do them all around. So from the other side of the table, they also look nice. I didn't think of that when I made them, but obviously you could have another circle here and also make it look nice from the other side. And the same with the tags. You can write to and from and use them on your Christmas gifts, or whatever gifts you want to give to someone. So all the same technique, just on a different surface. And yeah, like I said, you can just use any print you already have and do this layer on top. That makes it even quicker. And so it took me an hour now to create this card, but when you do it for yourself and you have already some backgrounds ready, then you can make several cards within an hour. So I hope you enjoyed this class. This was obviously my last class for this year. So I'm wishing you a beautiful December month and happy holidays. And I hope that I will see you again in January for a new class and new printmaking. So happy holidays, happy new year. See you in January. Thanks for being here. Bye.